William Shakespeare said, "Nothing is good or bad, only thinking makes it so." So our unfavorable circumstances are not bad in and of themselves, but what's immediately obvious about them is the bad. What if your biggest curse was really your biggest gift? What if that thing that you've been resenting about your life, or that person, or that event, or that thing about yourself, whatever it is, that thing in your life that you're like, why the fuck did this happen, or why the fuck is this happening, or why the fuck is this like this? Take the biggest thing. Now, let's pretend for a moment that no bad thing can ever come without a good thing. Whether that's true or not, let's just pretend for a second that that's the case. And that things are actually proportionately symmetrical in their polarity, such that the biggest curses are the biggest gifts. So, take the biggest thing in your life that you think is a curse, and now ask yourself, if this was actually a fucking massive gift, what would the gift be? If we pretend for a second, if this were a massive gift, I know that right now you're like, this is a shitty thing. Okay, let's park that for a second, and for a moment, let's just focus on flipping it psychologically. So, Tony Robbins he had a very difficult upbringing, and he later actually credits his mother, who was responsible for making his upbringing very difficult. He credits her for all of his success, because Tony Robbins, if you don't know him, is a self-development guy, teacher, guru, massive. And he's had enormous success, and he says if it wasn't for his mother making his childhood so psychologically difficult, he would never have done the things he did. He would never have gone on the quest that he went on in order to understand the things he needed to understand. And so he said, even though he had that childhood and it was painful, he said without it, he wouldn't be Tony Robbins. It's the pain that made him, actually. It's the biggest curse that gave him his biggest gift. But it's also, it didn't automatically transform into that. Because there are many other people who had similar upbringings to Tony Robbins who did not go on to become Tony Robbins, but instead went on to become drug addicts and maybe homeless and stuff. And that's not, I'm not saying that in a derogatory way. I'm saying that because obviously childhood pain can cause a lot of pain in your adult life. And so a lot of people had a similar upbringing to Tony, but instead of doing what he did, were consumed by the past. And it's only because Tony it's only because of Tony's attitude to what happened and what was happening that he did what he did. Because if he had the attitude of fuck this, fuck that, why do I have this fucking childhood, and why do I have this fucking life and all this shit, like fuck life and all that stuff, how likely with that frame of mind do you think it would be for him to be like, well, you know what, I'm gonna go study fucking, what was it, like 700 books he said on psychology and stuff, I'm gonna study all this stuff. With that attitude does not match those actions. Those actions which lead to that result are a match to a very different attitude. So actually, when you have something very difficult, you have a potential gift, and the gift is unwrapped only by your attitude. If you have the wrong attitude, you don't get the gift. If you have a different attitude, an attitude of victim mentality or something like that, then you don't get the gift, because it's the attitude combined with the preceding event or circumstances that produces that result. It's the combination. It's both. You need both. You need the circumstances and the attitude. It's the circumstance and the attitude. It's both. You need both. And so, and a circumstance, unfavorable circumstance plus empowering attitude can produce outstanding results, can produce remarkable results. The unfavorable circumstances alone are not good, and they don't produce the result. They're not good or bad. They don't produce the result. The attitude itself. So Tony had the right attitude. He had an attitude of, I'm going to make the most out of this. And not only did he do something like he did something extraordinary, right? He's helped millions of people, and that's down to his attitude combined with those circumstances. The attitude of, I'm guessing something like, I'm going to use this. So that thing in your life that you think is a curse, or a thing that you're like, I shouldn't have this, is bad, or whatever. How can you use that? How could you use that to your advantage? William Shakespeare said, nothing is good or bad, only thinking makes it so. So our unfavorable circumstances are not bad in and of themselves, but what's immediately obvious about them is the bad. But if you dig a little, then you can unravel some of the good, but only if you dig, and you can only dig with the right attitude.